Growing up in a foster home and being an orphan, no wonder you have such a wild imagination. Were you abandoned by your parents, you poor thing? Being raised by strangers, you just don't understand how people feel. Are you sure you're cut out to be a caregiver? The one saying these things to me is Heather, a nurse. No one knows if tomorrow will be sunny, but one thing's for certain, you can't change the past, but you can change the future. My name is Kelly, and I'm 31 years old. I work as a caregiver in a hospice ward. Until recently, I worked at a nursing home, not a hospital. I'm still treated as a newbie in this ward. I'm not yet allowed to assist with meals or bathing. My job mainly consists of cleaning and odd tasks. I want to quickly learn the ropes and become a trusted caregiver. It's understandable, given that we're entrusted with people's lives, but the rules at this hospital are strict, and there's always a sense of tension in the air. But maybe it's not just the rules that are the problem, there's a certain supervisor who always puts me on edge. It's Heather, a nurse who's 2 years older than me. Kelly. Yes, what is it? Just hearing my name called makes my body tense up. You gave candy to a patient, didn't you? Candy? That's right. How are you going to take responsibility? Was there a problem? Don't ask me if there was a problem. Heather flew into a rage, and I cowered in fear. Don't make such a gloomy face. It's putting me in a bad mood. That wasn't my intent. The patient is on a sodium-restricted diet. You know it'll be too late if something happens. I hurriedly tried to explain. No, it was a patient without restrictions. I checked, and the patient themselves wanted it. I even confirmed with the family members who were there. So what? You didn't check with me, did you? No, I didn't. How dare you talk back to me? You can't just go around giving candy to patients. I didn't mean to argue back. I stayed silent because I didn't want to make her angrier. Meals in the hospice ward are managed by nutritionists. Of course, since everyone's condition is different, we listen carefully and provide accordingly. The most important thing is that patients can eat what they want. Eating brings happiness and satisfaction. It was just one piece of candy, but it made the patient happy. That made me happy, too. If something happens, I'm the one who has to take responsibility, you know? What can a newbie caregiver like you even do? I'm very sorry. Geez, you can't even understand something so basic. Is this the kind of person you are, coming from a nursing home? I gritted my teeth. Whether you're a nurse or a caregiver, we're supposed to be on the same team in this ward. To begin with, our roles are different, so I can't accept being looked down upon like this. But as harsh as it sounds, I think she's right. Even though I checked with another nurse, I should have also confirmed with Heather, who's in charge. That's right, because we're a team. I'm glad nothing bad happened this time. I need to reflect on this. I'm very sorry. I apologized again. Don't make such a filthy rat face. You're making me look like I'm guilty. I'm sorry. Honestly, I'd love to see your parents' faces, who brought you up like this. Oh, wait, Kelly, you grew up in an orphanage, right? I forgot. Sorry about that. Unbelievable. She definitely said that on purpose. Her malicious smile makes me nauseous. This person always says nasty things like this. I mean, you don't have parents, so of course, you can't see their faces. Sorry about that. No, it doesn't bother me. It's the truth, after all. I tried to say it nonchalantly, but my voice trembled. I can't raise my head. I'm so frustrated. Kelly, that attitude of yours is no good. This is a hospice, you know. It's a real downer when you make a face like you're at a funeral. That's not what I... You know the patients don't like you, right? I'll be more careful from now on. Please excuse me. If I stay here any longer, I might start crying. I apologized and went back to work. Come to think of it, what kind of expression is a filthy rat face anyway? By the way, about what she said about patients not liking me, unfortunately, I do have someone in mind. Just one person, though. That patient completely ignores me. It would be easier to understand if they complained to my face or outright rejected me, because then I could write it off as part of the job. Among the patients receiving hospice care, some are calm, while others are aggressive. Some suffer from the pain of illness, side effects of medication, and changes in their family and daily life. If there's anything I can do, I want to support them with all my might. But when I'm ignored, I'm at a total loss. Communicating through conversation is part of the job for a caregiver. Excuse me, I say as I enter the room of the patient who ignores me. Christina is an elderly woman with beautiful white hair and refined features. When I first met her, I felt like I had seen her somewhere before. Was she an actress on TV? But since then, I haven't seen her face even once, because whenever I come in, she always pulls the blanket over herself and faces the wall. It's not because she feels unwell, apparently, she doesn't do this with other people. Nice weather today, isn't it? I try to make conversation, but there's no response. The south-facing private room has a nice view, and you can see the flowers along the riverside. As I clean up the trash in the room, I talk as if to myself. You know, Christina, I've loved this candy since I was a kid. I always carry some with me. I got scolded by Nurse Heather for giving some to a patient. No reaction. It's always like this, but it makes me a little sad. Her thin back seems to be saying she doesn't want to talk or even see my face. I don't know when she started disliking me. It's been like this since the first time we met. I finish cleaning up and say, "Please excuse me," as I leave the room. I don't know why she dislikes me. Even if I asked, she probably wouldn't answer, and no matter how much I think about it, I can't figure it out. I have no idea what I did wrong, so it might not even be my fault. Supporting her for the rest of her life, that's my job. I can't dwell on it, or I won't be able to work. A few days later, as I was working as usual, Heather stopped me again. "Hey, Kelly." "Yes?" "What did you do this time?" Her attitude is as overbearing as ever. "Huh? What do you mean?" "I haven't given out any more candy." "I'm talking about Christina." "Oh, Christina. Did something happen?" "She's still just lying there with the blanket over her, and we haven't really talked. I've only made some inoffensive small talk about the weather, like how it's supposed to rain in the evening or how it's a clear day today." As usual, there was no response. I can say with confidence that I haven't done anything. "She says she doesn't want you coming in her room anymore." "What?" "I bet you did something unnecessary, didn't you?" "No, I didn't." "Well then, it must be that gloomy face of yours. She's always smiling and cheerful, you know." My mind goes blank for a moment. Who on earth is she talking about? I've never seen Christina smile. Go apologize to her right now. That's impossible. Huh? Don't be so spoiled. I don't understand why I'm being rejected. I'm telling you to just go apologize. Even if I apologize without knowing what I did wrong, it'll only make her feel worse. So you're just going to run away like that? She clicks her tongue, irritated. I'm confused. I don't know what to do. Please have someone else take over for me like she requested. That's not my job. Besides, we're short-staffed on both nurses and caregivers, so it's obviously impossible. Then what should I? That's why I'm telling you to go apologize for now. I couldn't say anything more to her angry expression. With my head in a jumble, I head towards Christina's room. What on earth did I do to make her say she doesn't want me coming anymore? No matter how much I think about it, I can't recall anything, and I feel pathetic. Excuse me. Just as I expected, she hid under the blanket when I entered. No matter what I say, I'll probably just upset her. The wind is strong today, isn't it? I made my usual small talk about the weather and realized something. I'm sorry. I'm always just talking about the weather. Did you not like that? No response. Well, of course she wouldn't want to talk to someone as unpleasant as me. You're right. I apologize. I'll keep the chatter to a minimum, but please let me continue to support you until we find a new caregiver. I'm sorry. That was the best I could manage to say. I really wanted to get used to the job quickly and take care of her personal needs. I haven't even reached the starting line, and being rejected fills me with sadness, guilt, and a sense of my own immaturity. My head is a jumble of emotions. When I exited the room, Heather was standing there. You apologized properly, right? Yes. And what did she say? Nothing. What? She didn't say anything? Can you really call that an apology then? She sighed in exasperation and looked at me with contempt. There's no way she could forgive you with that face of yours. It's just like one of those freight cars from Thomas the Tank Engine. She won't even look at my face in the first place. I don't even know what I did wrong, so what am I supposed to be forgiven for? You have the face of someone who thinks they're pitiful, huh? Growing up in an orphanage with no family, you have a strong persecution complex, don't you? I don't think that at all. Were you abandoned by your parents? Her malicious smile as she spoke made me angry. No, that's not it. My parents died in a fire. I had a grandmother, but she passed away a few years later. Everyone was very kind to me. Is that so? The children's home was a good place too. I don't want anyone pitying me. When I said that, she scoffed. What are you saying? Of course you're pitiable. I mean, you have nothing left, right? Her words were shocking. Being raised by strangers, you don't understand people's feelings, and that's why Christina hates you too. I could hear my own heartbeat. I was too stunned to speak. Are you sure you're cut out to be a caregiver? Mocking me again, as I stood there speechless, she went back to work. I'm not pitiable at all. I've lived my life supported by the kindness of many people. I want to repay that kindness. I became a caregiver because I wanted to help those who truly need support. I'm not pitiable. Not at all. The past can't be changed, but the future can be changed as much as you want. That's what I believe. By the way, what's a freight car from Thomas the Tank Engine? I've never seen it, so I don't know. The next day, I was standing in front of Christina's room. I took a deep breath. Even if I'm ignored or disliked, I have a job to do as a caregiver. I knocked and silently entered her room, then couldn't believe my eyes. She was leaning back on the reclining bed, looking in my direction. Surprised, I averted my gaze. I started cleaning, but I was so flustered I didn't know where to begin. I knew it. I have seen this person somewhere before. Should I say something? I wanted to make my usual inoffensive small talk about the weather, but I restrained myself. I won't say anything. As I silently went about my work, I could feel her gaze on me. What on earth happened today? Could she be angry about yesterday? I was afraid of what she might say, but she remained silent the whole time. It even seemed like she was smiling. Just as I was about to leave the room, she spoke. It's my fault, isn't it? Huh? Not understanding her sudden words, I asked her to repeat herself. Until yesterday, she wouldn't even show me her face. What happened? Is something the matter? I asked timidly. Well, you see, as she searched for words, she gave an embarrassed chuckle. I wonder if it will be sunny tomorrow. I was surprised she brought up the weather, which I thought she disliked. I didn't know how to respond, but I said, yes, I'm sure it will be, looking straight into her eyes. I answered and left the room. I have no idea what's going on, but her attitude was clearly different from before. I'm simply happy. Maybe we can talk again tomorrow. Little by little is fine. Let's build a relationship of trust. The corners of my mouth relax. It's the first time I've smiled so uncontrollably since starting work in this ward. The next day, I heard some sad news. This is the reality of a hospice ward. Christina's condition apparently took a sudden turn for the worse overnight, and by the time I arrived at work, it was all over. God can be cruel sometimes. As I was cleaning up her now empty room with my colleagues, a woman entered. It was Christina's daughter, Amber. Amber checked my name tag and handed me a letter. It was addressed to me. I took it, and on the back of the envelope, the sender was Christina. The woman who until yesterday was in this room, the one who disliked me. Why would she write me a letter? I was confused. When did she write it? Did she know my name? The neat handwriting was just like Christina's. What could be inside? I hoped it wasn't words of resentment or scolding about my work. Or maybe reading this would explain why she had ignored me. As I stared at the letter, lost in thought, Amber said to me, "Please read it." I hesitated because I was at work, but my colleague encouraged me. Go ahead. So I opened the envelope. Kelly. You must be surprised to hear me call you by name, and by the time you read this letter, I will no longer be in this world. There is something I want to apologize for in this letter. I apologize repeatedly. I'm sorry for being such a coward, not wanting you to hate me, and not being able to tell you directly. When I met you by chance, I was so surprised. The same name as the little Kelly I knew. The same voice but not the same smile as before. An anxious face. Was it because work was hard? No, I'm the one who stole your. Despite the financial difficulties, I focused on my studies and managed to get top grades. I was determined to win a scholarship to get into college. But during my senior year, my mom fell seriously ill. The medical bills piled up, and I had to work multiple part-time jobs to help out. There was no time left for studying, and my grades slipped. College became an unattainable dream. After graduating from high school, I took a full-time job at a local company. It wasn't glamorous, but I worked hard and proved myself, eventually earning a promotion to a management position. That's when I met Gianna. Gianna was my new manager and made it clear from the start that she looked down on me. She constantly reminded me of her Ivy League education and belittled my lack of a college degree. She would often take credit for my ideas and hard work, and this $20 million deal was just the latest example. Furious, I decided to gather all the evidence I could to prove that the deal was my work. I collected emails, meeting notes, and client testimonials that clearly showed I had been the one negotiating and closing the deal. Then I scheduled a meeting with the senior management team. The day of the meeting, I was nervous but determined. I presented my evidence calmly and confidently, highlighting my contributions and the work I had done. The senior managers were visibly impressed. Gianna tried to interrupt and discredit me, but the evidence was undeniable. After the meeting, the senior management team decided to investigate further. It didn't take long for them to uncover a pattern of Gianna taking credit for her subordinates' work. She was demoted and eventually left the company. With Gianna gone, I continued to work hard and eventually earned another promotion. This time, I was recognized not just for my work, but for my integrity and perseverance. I started mentoring younger employees, encouraging them to stay strong and fight for their contributions to be recognized. Looking back, I realized that even though I hadn't attended college, I had gained invaluable experience and skills through my hard work and determination. My parents' struggles had taught me resilience, and my journey had made me a stronger, more empathetic leader. Now, as I stand in my office overlooking the city, I think about Christina and my grandmother. They both faced their own struggles and showed incredible strength and kindness. Their memories inspire me to keep pushing forward and to support others along the way. And as I reach into my desk drawer for a piece of my favorite candy, I smile, knowing that I'm carrying a part of them with me, and that every sunny day is a new opportunity to make a difference. During the meeting, Gianna confidently presented the material, seemingly impressing Frederick and Harding. However, I noticed a few critical errors in her explanation. She misrepresented some key points of our proposal, likely because she hadn't thoroughly studied the materials I had provided. I decided to wait for the right moment to interject. As the discussion progressed, Harding asked a question about one of the points Gianna had explained incorrectly. Gianna, unable to provide a satisfactory answer, began to stammer. I seized the opportunity to step in. Actually, if I may clarify, I said, maintaining a professional tone. I addressed Harding's question with accurate information, explaining the details and ensuring the client understood the benefits of our proposal. Frederick and Harding seemed relieved and appreciative of the clarification. Gianna shot me a glare, but I remained composed. Throughout the rest of the meeting, I continued to correct her mistakes and provide additional insights whenever necessary. By the end of the discussion, it was clear to Frederick and Harding who had a better grasp of the project. After the meeting, Frederick pulled me aside. Nyla, thank you for your thorough explanations. It's clear you have a deep understanding of this project. We'll be in touch soon, he said, shaking my hand firmly. Gianna, visibly upset, left the client's office without saying a word to me. Back at our company, she stormed into Hiram's office. I could hear her raised voice through the door, complaining about how I had undermined her during the meeting. Later that day, Hiram called me into his office. Nyla, I've heard from both Gianna and the clients about today's meeting. Frederick and Harding were very impressed with your knowledge and professionalism. It's clear that you were instrumental in the success of this negotiation. I nodded, unsure of what to expect next. As for Gianna, her behavior has become increasingly problematic. We've decided to take disciplinary action. She will no longer be involved in your projects, and we are reviewing her position within the company. Relief washed over me. Finally, my efforts and integrity were recognized. Hiram continued, we'll be restructuring our hiring practices, focusing more on character and practical skills rather than just academic background. You've shown us that dedication and experience are invaluable. In the following weeks, the atmosphere at the company improved significantly. Without Gianna's toxic influence, the team was more cooperative and productive. The deal with Frederick and Harding was finalized successfully, marking a major milestone for our company. Reflecting on my journey, I realized that my path, though unconventional, had equipped me with resilience, empathy, and a strong work ethic. My grandmother's and Christina's memories continued to inspire me. I was determined to foster a positive work environment and support my colleagues in their growth. And every now and then, on a clear sunny day, I would think about them, savor a piece of my favorite candy, and smile, knowing that I had turned adversity into strength and made a meaningful difference in my life and the lives of others. As Hiram's reprimand dragged on, it became clear that Gianna's behavior had finally caught up with her. The other high school graduate employees, who had long endured her abuse, quietly celebrated this moment of justice. Eventually, Hiram concluded his lengthy lecture. Gianna, your actions have jeopardized this company's reputation and nearly cost us a major deal. Effective immediately, you are demoted from your managerial position. Furthermore, your future with this company will be reviewed. Gianna, visibly shaken, nodded silently. As she walked out of the office, her usual arrogance was replaced by a defeated demeanor. The atmosphere in the office lightened considerably with her departure. Hiram turned to me. Nyla, I want to commend you for your professionalism and dedication. Your efforts ensured the success of this deal, and it's clear you have the company's best interests at heart. Thank you, Hiram, I replied. I'm committed to doing my best for our team and our clients. With Gianna no longer a disruptive force, our workplace became more harmonious. The high school graduate employees worked with renewed motivation, and even the highly educated employees started to adjust their attitudes, recognizing that merit and character were more important than educational background alone. As weeks passed, the company implemented new hiring policies focused on evaluating candidates' character and practical skills alongside their academic credentials. This change led to a more cohesive and productive work environment. The success of the $2 million deal not only bolstered my confidence but also earned me greater respect within the company. My grandmother's and Christina's memories continued to inspire me, and I felt a renewed sense of purpose in my work. One day, while enjoying a piece of my favorite candy, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. I realized that every challenge had strengthened me, and I was proud of the positive impact I was making. I was determined to continue fostering a supportive and inclusive workplace, just as I had always envisioned. In the end, it wasn't just about achieving professional success. It was about staying true to my values, supporting my colleagues, and making a meaningful difference in the lives of those around me. And in doing so, I honored the legacy of those who had guided me along the way. As for me, the environment at work significantly improved. The tension and stress that had been building up due to Gianna and the other problematic highly educated employees dissipated. Our team, now more united and motivated, focused on our goals with renewed vigor. The $2 million deal I secured became a catalyst for further opportunities, and our company started attracting clients who appreciated our dedication and professionalism. Hiram, true to his word, revised the hiring policies to emphasize character and practical skills over purely academic credentials. This change brought in new employees who were not only capable but also fit well with our company's culture. The workplace became a place where mutual respect and teamwork were valued, and everyone felt more at ease and motivated to perform their best. One day, Hiram called me into his office. "Nyla, I want to thank you for your outstanding contributions and your commitment to improving our workplace. You've demonstrated exceptional leadership and dedication. I'm promoting you to a senior position where you'll have more influence in shaping our company's future." I was both surprised and grateful. "Thank you, Hiram. I promise to continue working hard and supporting our team." With this promotion, I took on more responsibilities and began mentoring new employees, ensuring they felt welcomed and supported. My journey from giving up on college to becoming a key player in the company had been challenging, but it was also immensely rewarding. I drew strength from my past experiences and the memory of my grandmother and Christina, who had always believed in me. As months turned into years, our company thrived. We expanded our client base, took on larger projects, and became known for our inclusive and supportive work environment. My personal life also improved as I focused on my career and built strong relationships with my colleagues and friends. Reflecting on my journey, I realized that every challenge had taught me valuable lessons and shaped me into the person I am today. I had overcome adversity, stayed true to my values, and made a positive impact on those around me. I felt a deep sense of fulfillment and looked forward to the future with optimism and determination. In the end, it wasn't just about professional success. It was about growing as a person, supporting others, and making a meaningful difference. And as I continued to lead with compassion and integrity, I knew I was honoring the legacy of those who had guided and inspired me along the way. Each time James scolded Amelia, it led to more tension in the household. Amelia's resentment towards me grew, and her actions became more disruptive. Despite the challenges, I remained determined to care for David and maintain a peaceful home. One evening, after a particularly heated argument with James, Amelia stormed out of the house. I used the opportunity to talk to James about finding a more permanent solution to the ongoing conflicts. We decided that we needed to have a serious conversation with David about the situation. The following weekend, we all sat down together in the living room. David, with his oxygen concentrator by his side, looked at us with concern. "David," I began gently, "we need to talk about Amelia and the current situation. It's becoming increasingly difficult to manage everything, and it's affecting everyone's well-being, including yours." David nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I know it's been tough. Amelia has always been strong-willed, but this behavior is unacceptable." James took a deep breath. "Dad, we think it's best if Amelia finds her own place. It's not fair to Nicola, and it's not fair to you. We need a more stable and peaceful environment for your recovery." Amelia, who had just returned home, overheard the conversation and burst into the room. "You want to kick me out? This is my home too." James stood firm. "Amelia, your behavior is causing too much stress for everyone. We can help you find a place and support you, but you need to start living independently." Amelia's face turned red with anger, but then she looked at David, who was struggling to breathe calmly. Seeing her father's condition seemed to strike a chord with her. "Fine," she said, her voice trembling. "I'll move out, but don't expect me to come running back if things go wrong." In the following weeks, we helped Amelia find an apartment nearby. Although the transition was difficult, it ultimately brought peace to our household. David's health stabilized, and the atmosphere at home became more supportive and less tense. As time went on, I became more proficient in caregiving, thanks to online courses and support groups. David's condition remained stable, and he often expressed his gratitude for the care and love he received. James and I grew closer, united by the shared responsibility and the challenges we had overcome together. One day, as I was helping David with his exercises, he looked at me and said, "Nicola, you have been a blessing to this family. I don't know how we would have managed without you." I smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment and fulfillment. "Thank you, David. It hasn't been easy, but we're all in this together. Family means everything to me." In the end, we created a harmonious home where David could recover and enjoy his days in peace. James and I continued to support each other, and even Amelia, despite her rocky start, occasionally visited and gradually improved her relationship with the family. Through all the hardships, we learned the true meaning of family and resilience, and I knew that we could face any challenge that came our way. The situation was dire and unsettling. It became clear that David's hospitalization was a result of the power being cut off, which had inadvertently led to his heat stroke. The details of what had transpired were troubling and pointed to a much deeper issue. As I absorbed the full scope of the problem, I felt a surge of anger and frustration towards the circumstances that led to David's suffering. The fact that the power cutoff had been a major factor, combined with Amelia's reckless behavior and disregard for the household's well-being, left me shaken. James and I decided that we needed to investigate further to prevent any future incidents. Amelia's reaction had been one of panic and blame, but it seemed she was avoiding the truth. To address the issue properly, we needed to confirm whether the power outage was indeed an accident or if something else had occurred. We started by checking the electrical system and the condition of the oxygen concentrator. After examining everything thoroughly, it became apparent that the power had been turned off at the main breaker. This was a deliberate act rather than an accident. Amelia's history of causing trouble made it hard to ignore the possibility that she might have been involved. James and I confronted Amelia about our findings. When we confronted her, she was initially defensive but eventually broke down under the pressure. "Amelia," James said firmly, "the power being cut off was deliberate. We need to know why this happened." Amelia's face was flushed with shame and fear. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I was frustrated, and I thought that maybe if I turned off the breaker, it would force everyone to save energy. I didn't realize the consequences. I'm so sorry." Her admission was a mix of regret and misjudgment. While her actions were misguided and selfish, they were not intended to cause harm. Nevertheless, the gravity of the situation meant that we had to take steps to ensure it wouldn't happen again. James and I decided to take the following measures. 1. Immediate repairs and precautions. We had the electrical system thoroughly checked and repaired. We also installed additional safety measures to prevent unauthorized access to critical equipment. 2. Clear communication. We set up regular meetings to discuss household issues and ensure everyone understood their responsibilities, especially regarding David's care. 3. Establish boundaries. Amelia was informed that while she was welcome to visit, she would not have access to the home without prior permission. This was to ensure that any potential disruptions could be managed better. For support for David, we arranged for additional support and resources to assist with David's care, including emergency protocols to handle situations like this. The experience was a harsh lesson in the importance of communication, responsibility, and setting boundaries. While Amelia's behavior had caused significant stress, the focus was on ensuring David's safety and creating a more stable environment for everyone involved. Over time, with better management and support, the household found a new equilibrium, and David's health and well-being improved. Though the road was tough and full of challenges, it reinforced the value of family, accountability, and perseverance. Amelia's actions and subsequent reactions were shocking and deeply troubling. The surveillance footage revealed her malicious intent, turning off the breaker to disrupt our home and, indirectly, endanger David's health. Her attempt to justify her actions and shift blame only compounded the gravity of her behavior. James and I were left reeling from the evidence. Amelia's attempt to portray her actions as a form of misguided retribution was inexcusable, and her lack of genuine remorse was evident. David's rebuke highlighted the severe impact of her actions and the pain it had caused everyone involved. David's reaction was a mix of relief that he was safe and dismay at Amelia's continued denial of responsibility. James and I were determined to address this issue decisively. Here's what we decided to do. 1. Cease contact with Amelia. Given her destructive behavior and inability to take responsibility, we decided that it was best to cut off contact with Amelia. She was no longer welcome in our home or in our lives until she demonstrated a genuine change in attitude and understanding. 2. Legal and financial consequences. We explored legal options to hold Amelia accountable for her actions. While David and James chose not to pursue a formal complaint, they were adamant that Amelia should face some consequences for her behavior. This included revisiting her financial contributions to the household, which she had neglected even before the incident. 3. Improved security measures. To prevent any future issues, we enhanced our home security and established strict guidelines for access. We also ensured that all critical systems, like the oxygen concentrator, had backup power sources. 4. Family counseling. James and I sought professional help to address the emotional and psychological fallout from the incident. This included counseling for David, James, and me to cope with the trauma and work through the impact of Amelia's actions on our family dynamics. 5. Focus on caregiving. We continued to prioritize David's care, ensuring that he received the support and attention he needed to maintain his health and well-being. We also made sure that the caregiving environment was stable and supportive, free from the disruptions caused by Amelia. Amelia's departure from our lives was a painful but necessary step. It was clear that her actions were a result of deep-seated issues that she was unwilling to confront. For David's sake and for the well-being of our family, we had to move forward without her. In the aftermath, the household dynamics slowly improved. David's health stabilized, and James and I worked together to maintain a harmonious and supportive environment. The experience reinforced the importance of responsibility, communication, and mutual respect in any family or household setting. It sounds like both David's and your experiences have been deeply challenging, but also pivotal in reshaping your lives. David's strong reaction to Amelia's actions was a clear indication of the serious breach of trust she had committed. His decision to disown her was a drastic but understandable measure given the gravity of her behavior. Amelia's attempts to justify her actions and shift the blame were met with rightful condemnation, and her subsequent fallout was a result of her own choices. As for your situation with Christopher, it seems you've been through a difficult and emotionally draining period. The stark contrast between how he was before and after marriage is troubling. His indifference and lack of communication have clearly taken a toll on you. Christopher's behavior, especially his disregard for your feelings and the change in his demeanor post-marriage, can feel like a betrayal, especially when it contrasts so sharply with the person you knew before. The divorce application you've been holding on to represents a potential path to resolving this distress, but it's also a significant step to take. If you decide to move forward with the divorce, it might help to focus on 1. Clarity and communication. Before making any final decisions, it could be useful to have an honest conversation with Christopher about your feelings and the state of your marriage. This may not lead to a resolution, but it can provide clarity on whether there's a possibility for change or reconciliation. 2. Support system. Surround yourself with supportive friends or family who can offer emotional support and guidance. Navigating these feelings and decisions alone can be overwhelming. 3. Professional guidance. Consulting with a counselor or therapist could provide you with tools to handle the situation, whether you choose to work on the marriage or move towards divorce. 4. Legal and financial advice. If you're considering divorce, speaking with a legal professional about the implications and preparing for the process can help you make informed decisions. The fact that you're contemplating this seriously and seeking a resolution indicates that you're taking steps to address your own well-being. Whether you choose to work on the marriage or move forward with divorce, prioritizing your emotional health and happiness is crucial. It sounds like you've been through a lot, both with Amelia and with Christopher. The way Amelia's actions led to her downfall and the ongoing issues with Christopher must have been incredibly challenging. It's understandable to feel conflicted and distressed in such situations. It's important to prioritize your own well-being and safety. If you need support or guidance, consider reaching out to a professional counselor who can help you navigate these complex emotions and decisions. It sounds like you've been through an incredibly difficult and disheartening situation with Christopher. Discovering infidelity and dealing with a partner who has been emotionally distant can be devastating. It's clear that you've taken a decisive step in addressing these issues by seeking evidence and considering divorce. If you're moving forward with this process, here are a few things to keep in mind. 1. Document everything. Continue to gather and document all evidence of infidelity and any other relevant information. This will be important for any legal proceedings or negotiations. 2. Seek professional help. Consulting with a lawyer who specializes in family law can provide you with guidance on your legal rights and options, especially when dealing with issues like infidelity and financial disputes. 3. Focus on your well-being. Take care of yourself during this time. The emotional and mental toll of such situations can be significant, so consider seeking support from a counselor or therapist to help you navigate your feelings and decisions. 4. Plan your next steps. Make sure you have a plan for your financial and living situation moving forward. This will help you manage the transition more smoothly. It's a tough situation, but taking these steps can help you regain control and work towards a resolution that's in your best interest. If you need more support or advice, feel free to ask. The situation you've described has clearly escalated into a dramatic confrontation. The complexity of the emotional and practical fallout from Christopher's infidelity and the ensuing actions is intense. Here are a few key points and strategies you might consider moving forward. 1. Clarify your position. It's crucial to ensure that the legal and emotional aspects of the divorce are clear. Given the evidence of infidelity and the impact on your life, it's important to work closely with your lawyer to ensure that your rights are protected and that you're prepared for any legal battles that may arise. 2. Handle confrontations wisely. When meeting with Christopher and Lily, maintaining composure is key. It's clear from your description that emotions are high, but keeping a level head can help in making rational decisions and negotiating from a position of strength. 3. Review financial and legal implications. With the involvement of a large sum of money and potential claims regarding property and financial support, ensure that all financial aspects are thoroughly reviewed. This might include alimony, division of assets, and any claims you might need to make based on evidence of Christopher's behavior. 4. Prepare for emotional impact. The fallout from such revelations can be overwhelming. Make sure to have a support system in place, whether it's friends, family, or a counselor, to help you navigate the emotional challenges of this period. 5. Consider future steps. Once the divorce is finalized, think about your long-term plans. This could include new living arrangements, career goals, and personal healing. It's important to focus on rebuilding your life post-divorce and finding a path that brings you happiness and stability. If you need more detailed advice or have specific questions about the process, feel free to ask. This is a challenging situation, and taking it one step at a time will help you manage the stress and move forward effectively. It sounds like Sarah has found herself in a situation similar to the one you described earlier, navigating a difficult relationship and dealing with a partner who has changed significantly after achieving success. Her experience of having her spouse's attitude shift from supportive to critical mirrors the feelings you've shared about Christopher. Here's a summary of what Sarah's situation reflects and potential steps she might consider. 1. Assess the situation. Just as you evaluated the state of your relationship with Christopher, Sarah needs to assess whether David's behavior is a temporary phase or a deeper, more ingrained issue. His recent critical attitude might stem from insecurity or other underlying issues. 2. Communicate clearly. Open and honest communication is crucial. Sarah should express her feelings and concerns to David, highlighting how his criticism affects her and the relationship. Clear communication can sometimes help address misunderstandings and resolve issues. 3. Seek support. Just as you sought help from your family and a detective, Sarah might benefit from support, whether from friends, family, or a professional counselor, to navigate her emotional and practical concerns. 4. Evaluate priorities. Sarah should consider what she values most in her relationship and her own well-being. If David's behavior continues to be detrimental, she might need to evaluate whether the relationship is fulfilling her needs and whether it's worth continuing. 5. Set boundaries. Establishing clear boundaries about what is acceptable behavior and what isn't can help in maintaining respect and dignity in the relationship. 6. Focus on self-care. Just as you focused on rebuilding your life and returning to your job, Sarah should prioritize her own well-being and happiness. Ensuring she has a balanced life and supports her own needs is essential. If you have more specific questions or need advice on how Sarah might proceed, let me know. Sarah's situation has escalated to a point of significant emotional distress, particularly with the discovery of David's new family. Here's a summary of her current predicament and some possible steps she might take. Summary of the situation. David's behavior. After David's promotion, his attitude towards Sarah changed drastically. He began to criticize her household management and even suggested she quit her job, which she took pride in. Anniversary incident. David used their anniversary reservation for a business dinner and showed indifference towards their relationship. Discovery. Sarah unexpectedly encountered David with another woman, Emma, who was submitting a birth notification. Emma is younger than Sarah and has a child with David, born on their wedding anniversary. 1. Confirm the details. Sarah should gather all relevant information and documents to confirm the full extent of David's new family situation. This includes verifying the birth certificate details and understanding the legal implications. 2. Seek legal advice. Consulting with a lawyer is crucial to understand her rights and options regarding the situation, including potential divorce proceedings and any claims she might have. 3. Confront David. Once she has all the information, Sarah should consider having a direct conversation with David. It's essential to express her feelings, clarify the situation, and discuss the next steps. 4. A support system. Leaning on friends, family, or a counselor can provide emotional support and practical advice during this challenging time. 5. Decide on future actions. Depending on the outcome of the confrontation and legal advice, Sarah will need to decide on her future steps, including whether to pursue a divorce and how to handle any potential financial or personal implications. 6. Focus on self-care. Amidst the turmoil, it's important for Sarah to take care of her own emotional and physical well-being. Finding ways to cope with the stress and maintain a positive outlook is crucial. Keeping records of any interactions with David and the woman involved will be helpful in legal proceedings. Assess the financial impact of any decisions, especially if divorce or separation is pursued. Navigating such a complex and painful situation is challenging, but addressing it with clear steps and support can help Sarah manage the outcomes effectively. If you have any specific questions or need further advice on aspects of this situation, feel free to ask. Sarah's encounter with David and Emma has escalated into a dramatic confrontation. Here's a summary of the key events and actions taken. Emma's reaction. Emma was shocked and visibly upset when presented with the unfilled divorce form and the need for David to finalize their divorce before proceeding with their new relationship. Her distress was compounded by the realization that David had deceived her about his marital status. David's behavior. David, caught off guard and panicked, struggled to respond. His previous excuses for delaying the marriage certificate were revealed to be lies. His attempt to use Emma's money and his subsequent mistreatment of her further compounded his issues. Emma's confrontation. Emma demanded answers from David, shaking him and pressing for repayment of money she had lent him. Her anger was directed at both David and Sarah, the latter being an unexpected participant in the situation. Arrival of Emma's parents. Emma's parents arrived, with her father confronting David about his actions. The father's anger was directed at David for seducing his daughter and causing distress. Emma's father also questioned David about the wedding funds. 1. Finalizing the divorce. Sarah should ensure that the divorce process is completed legally and that all necessary documentation is filed properly. This may include finalizing the divorce decree and handling any financial settlements. 2. Handling financial matters. If there are any financial entanglements or property division involved, Sarah should work with her lawyer to address these matters efficiently. 3. Seeking support. Sarah should continue to lean on her support network for emotional and practical assistance. This includes friends, family, and possibly a counselor to help process her feelings and navigate the aftermath. 4. Reflecting on the experience. After dealing with the immediate concerns, Sarah might benefit from reflecting on the experience to gain closure and move forward with her life. This could involve personal growth or considering future relationships with a new perspective. 5. Legal follow-up. Sarah might want to monitor any legal developments related to David's situation, particularly if there are ongoing issues with Emma or other financial claims. Stay composed. Despite the intense emotions involved, maintaining composure will help in managing the situation effectively and in dealing with legal and personal matters. Document everything. Keep records of all interactions and legal documents related to the divorce and any financial transactions or claims. Focus on self-care, prioritize personal well-being and seek professional help if needed to cope with the emotional impact of the situation. Navigating such a complex and emotionally charged situation is challenging, but addressing it with careful consideration and support can help Sarah move forward more effectively. If you have any specific questions or need further guidance on aspects of this situation, feel free to ask. The unfolding saga in Sarah's life continues to reveal significant emotional and financial turmoil for both her and David, while also introducing Lynn's story of a troubled marriage. Here's a breakdown of both situations. 1. David's downfall. David's deceitful actions, including the disappearance of wedding funds and his fraudulent behavior, led to severe consequences. His affair with Emma, along with the compensation paid for another affair, contributed to his financial ruin. David faced legal action, lost his job, and struggled to find new employment. 2. Sarah's recovery. After finalizing the divorce, Sarah moved to a new apartment, distanced herself from David's troubles, and received support from her family and colleagues. She also declined financial compensation from Emma, prioritizing the child's well-being over any financial gain. 3. New beginnings. Sarah transitioned to a different branch at work, where she found better conditions and appreciation. Despite the challenges, she is starting a more peaceful and fulfilling life. 1. Marriage and fertility issues. Lynn and Duke, who were initially excited about starting a family, faced difficulties conceiving. Over time, Duke's frustration grew, and his treatment of Lynn became harsh and dismissive. 2. Failed communication. Lynn's suggestion to pursue fertility treatments was met with Duke's anger and refusal. He blamed Lynn for their inability to conceive and refused to participate in fertility tests. 3. Seeking help. Lynn visited a fertility clinic alone, where the doctor stressed the importance of both partners being involved. Despite Duke's resistance, Lynn continued to try persuading him to seek medical help together. David's consequences. Sarah's decision to report David's behavior and sue for fraud led to significant consequences for him. His professional and personal life deteriorated, and he faced substantial financial hardships. Lynn's challenges. Lynn is grappling with Duke's refusal to cooperate with fertility treatments and his deteriorating behavior. The strain on their relationship due to infertility issues has led to significant emotional stress. Legal and financial matters. Continue to ensure that all legal matters related to the divorce and compensation are properly handled. Monitor any ongoing legal issues or claims against David. Personal healing. Focus on personal growth and healing from the emotional aftermath of the divorce. Engage in activities that bring joy and fulfillment. Seek support. Lynn should seek support from friends, family, or a counselor to navigate the emotional difficulties stemming from her marriage and fertility issues. Consider professional help. If Duke continues to refuse cooperation, Lynn might need to consider seeking professional counseling or mediation to address their relationship issues and explore options for fertility treatment. Evaluate the relationship. Lynn should evaluate her relationship with Duke and consider whether it's worth continuing if he remains uncooperative and dismissive. Navigating these complex situations requires resilience and support. If you need more specific advice or further details, feel free to ask. It sounds like Lynn's encounter with Duke and Pamela revealed some significant truths and stirred a mix of emotions. Here's a breakdown of the situation. 1. Fertility clinic incident. Lynn took Duke to the fertility clinic, where Duke was displeased with the process and tests. His reaction was aggressive and dismissive, leading to an outburst where he demanded a divorce. 2. Divorce and moving out. After Duke's harsh comments and the demand for divorce, Lynn packed her things and moved to her parents' house. The shock of Duke's behavior and the abrupt end of their marriage led to a period of emotional distress. 3. Encounter with Duke and Pamela. While out at a shopping mall, Lynn ran into Duke and his new wife, Pamela. Duke's rude behavior and the introduction of Pamela, who was previously linked to Lynn's best friend Johanna, only added to Lynn's frustration and sense of betrayal. Duke's new relationship. Duke's swift remarriage and the revelation that Pamela was connected to Johanna underscored Duke's lack of integrity and the fact that he was likely involved with Pamela before the divorce. Pamela's connection to Johanna, Lynn's best friend, reveals a deeper layer of deceit and betrayal. Johanna's trust and friendship with Lynn were compromised by Pamela's actions. Lynn's reaction, Lynn's laughter and subsequent confrontation with Duke and Pamela were a way to reclaim some control and dignity in the face of his mistreatment. Her ability to move on and address the situation with composure demonstrates strength and resilience. 1. Process emotions. Allow yourself to process the emotions surrounding the divorce and the encounter with Duke and Pamela. It's important to acknowledge and address any feelings of betrayal or hurt. 2. Seek support. Lean on friends, family, or a counselor for emotional support. Navigating such personal upheavals can be challenging, and having a support system is crucial. 3. Focus on the future. As you move forward, concentrate on rebuilding your life and pursuing activities that bring you joy and fulfillment. This can help in overcoming the emotional impact of the divorce and the revelation of Duke's new relationship. 4. Address trust issues. If you feel comfortable, discuss the situation with Johanna to address any issues or misunderstandings. Clearing the air with your friend might help restore trust and provide closure. 5. Self-care. Engage in self-care practices that help you feel better and regain confidence. This can include hobbies, exercise, or other activities that contribute to your well-being. If you need more specific advice or support on any aspect of this situation, feel free to ask. It seems like Lynn's story has come full circle with several key developments. 1. Pamela's true nature. Pamela was exposed as a deceitful person who manipulated several men, including Johanna's ex-boyfriend. Her fraudulent behavior aligns with what Lynn warned Duke about, revealing Pamela's true nature. 2. Duke's downfall. Duke's financial struggles and eventual realization of his own infertility were significant turning points. His life deteriorated after his deceitful marriage to Pamela fell apart, leading to him pleading for financial help from Lynn. 3. Lynn's recovery and new beginnings. Lynn has successfully moved on from her troubled marriage. She's regained her stability, is thriving in her career, and is now in a promising relationship with someone who has recently moved closer to her. Duke's response. Duke's denial and eventual shock upon learning about his infertility reflect his inability to accept responsibility for his actions and failures. His subsequent desperation and attempts to reconcile with Lynn, only to be rejected, illustrate his downfall and the consequences of his previous actions. Pamela's exposure. The revelation about Pamela's behavior and her connection to Johanna's ex-boyfriend underscores a pattern of deceit and manipulation, validating Lynn's concerns and providing closure to that part of the story. Lynn's empowerment. Lynn's ability to move forward, establish a new life, and find a new partner reflects her resilience and growth. Her actions, from rejecting Duke's pleas to starting a new relationship, highlight her personal strength and the positive direction her life is taking. 1. Enjoy the present. Embrace the new beginnings in both her career and personal life. The stability and happiness she's found are well earned. 2. Build new memories. Focus on creating positive experiences and building a future with her new partner. This can help reinforce her sense of fulfillment and well-being. 3. Maintain boundaries. Continue to set and maintain boundaries with Duke to ensure that his past actions do not impact her current life. 4. Reflect and grow. Use the past experiences as lessons for personal growth and to strengthen future relationships. 5. Celebrate achievements. Take time to celebrate milestones and achievements in her career and personal life as she moves forward. If there's anything more you'd like to explore or discuss about Lynn's journey or any other topic, feel free to let me know. I glanced at my dad's bank account and saw nearly $600 million. I thought, this money is all mine now. I don't need you anymore. After my kind father-in-law passed away, I was still grieving when my husband came to me and casually announced that he wanted a divorce. It turns out he was only revealing his true colors after getting his hands on the $600 million inheritance from his father. He saw me as nothing more than an ATM, just waiting for Dad to pass away so he could live a lavish life without having to work. I had seen glimpses of his true nature before, but I never realized he was this awful. Before I knew it, I was clenching my fists, angry at myself for being fooled into this marriage. I could accept being deceived, but I couldn't stand him speaking badly about my kind father-in-law. Fine, I said, hand me those divorce papers. I snatched the papers from my husband, signed them quickly, and threw them back at him. All right, the rest is up to you, I told him.
Yeah,
Leave it to me, he replied smugly. He offered to send my belongings, and I walked past him out of the living room and left the house. I knew my husband would regret divorcing me. Sure enough, he called me later, panicking when I explained that the $600 million was just a fantasy. My name is Mary, I'm 45 years old, and I work in sales. My husband John is also 45 and used to work in sales but now stays at home. There's a story behind him becoming a homemaker, but to explain that, I should start with my first husband. This is my second marriage. My first husband died in a work accident 5 years ago, leaving me a widow. Between life insurance and severance pay, I received about $600,000. Since my first marriage happened later in my 30s, we didn't have any children. I inherited the money along with my ex-in-laws, but they told me, we're almost 82 years old and don't have much time left, so we don't need it. I couldn't accept that and decided to give the money to my ex-brother-in-law and his wife, who were living with my ex-in-laws. However, they also said, we don't need much since it was my brother's money. You should use it, so they only took a small portion of the money. In the end, after paying a significant amount in inheritance taxes, most of the money ended up with me. Combined with our savings and the fact that I had a job, I became fairly well off by the age of 41. But even with all that, sitting alone at home and looking at the numbers in my bank account, I felt empty. When I came home from work, no one was there, and no one ever would be. The bed beside me stayed perfectly made, just as it was before I went to sleep. The worst part was when I accidentally made breakfast for two. As I took a bite of the second piece of toast, I thought, this must be what it feels like to have a hole in your heart. I really wanted to take some time off, but I had to keep working, so I went back to my job with this emptiness inside me, constantly feeling a sense of void. I desperately wanted someone, anyone, to listen to me, and that someone turned out to be my current husband. When I told him about my husband passing away and how I had to take some time off because of it, he said, I'm sorry for any inconvenience. I quickly replied, no, it was no inconvenience at all. Besides, your husband was a lucky man to have someone who cared for him so much. I'm sure he was very happy. He then shared a bit about himself, saying, as for me, I'm terrible at relationships. Even when I do date someone, I get dumped quickly. I know it's because of my careless personality, but it seems hard to change who you are. My husband and I were business acquaintances before we got to know each other better. I knew he was a cheerful person, so when I visited his company, I ended up telling him everything. Normally, anyone would find such a dark and heavy story off-putting, but he listened quietly and then cheered me up with some light-hearted jokes. His words and smile seemed to fill a bit of the hole in my heart. He continued to listen to my stories, and we started meeting outside of work. One day, while we were talking, I accidentally dropped a receipt, and he jokingly said, wow, my wallet is twice as thick with coins. You dropped a receipt, and we both laughed. I need to organize it, but it's such a hassle, he added. When he tried to pay at a store, receipts started falling out as he pulled out some cash. I picked up the receipts and handed them back to him, and he stuffed them back into his wallet, complaining about the coins. It seems like the receipts are also making your wallet bulky, I teased. You're like a kid, John. What? I'm 45, you know, he replied. Just as he said, he was a bit careless, but watching him, I felt the hole in my heart slowly start to close. We kept meeting privately, and a year later, he told me he had feelings for me. It had only been a year since my previous husband passed away, so I was torn, but I felt like my late husband was telling me, don't stay stuck, move forward. So, I decided to start dating John. People around us had their opinions, but making that important decision helped me begin to heal. However, just a month later, John gave me an even bigger concern and asked me to make an incredibly important decision. Shouldn't we get married? Given our age, it's better to decide sooner rather than later. This time, I couldn't hear my late husband's voice guiding me. It felt like he was telling me to trust my own intuition and keep moving forward. So, I decided to marry John. Okay, let's get married, I said, surprising even myself with how quickly I made that decision. It was likely John's personality rubbing off on me. I started to think that a bit of carelessness wasn't so bad if it made me more positive. At the same time, I learned from John that too much carelessness could be problematic. Wait, live with your dad? I asked.
Yeah,
Just recently he got sick and needs help with daily living. He kept working past 73, thinking he was still young, and now this happened. What about your mom? Is she helping him? Huh? Didn't I mention it? My mom's not around. My parents divorced when I was young, and I haven't seen her since. This is the first I'm hearing of it. Sorry, don't be mad, but it's a heavy topic to bring up when we weren't sure about getting married yet, right? I figured I'd tell you later. Even if you put off talking about living together, you could have told me about your parents. I would have known that living together might be an option. Well, let's not sweat the small stuff. Just meet my dad and then decide if you're okay with living together. And if I say I can't live with him? We'll figure it out then, John said with a smile, but I couldn't smile back. I'm not planning to say I don't want to marry you just because I don't want to live together. I just wish you had told me the important things earlier. I thought being careless wasn't so bad, but now I see it's not a good thing after all. In the end, I agreed to meet his father as John suggested. Then, I began to understand what he meant by small stuff. Your house is pretty big, I said. Just a bit. It's just me and Dad, so we have some extra rooms. If you move in, you can use any of the spare rooms, John replied. I was about to meet his dad for the first time, so I was a little nervous. Ignoring my feelings, John opened the gate and walked towards the front door. His house was 3 stories high, slightly bigger than the neighboring houses. Living there with just the two of them seemed quite luxurious. That's what I thought, but John seemed dissatisfied. Dad's so stingy. He should have built a bigger house, he muttered to himself. But I was too nervous about meeting his dad to confirm what he said. Dad, I brought her. This is Mary, John said. Nice to meet you, I said. Sorry to greet you from bed. It's been hard to move lately, his dad replied. Please don't strain yourself, I said. John's father propped himself up with John's help. He wasn't bedridden, and it seemed he could get up and walk slowly with a bit of help. So, he could manage with some assistance. Despite his physical issues, his father seemed sharper than I expected. So, Mary, you're in sales for office equipment. With the move to paperless offices, selling the hardware must be getting tougher, right? His dad asked. Yes, industry-wide, equipment sales have been declining for about 11 years, so everyone is focusing on new services or business expansion, I replied. Considering that the domestic market for the equipment is almost saturated, you need to look at countries where there's still demand for new services. IT integration might be the way to go. I think there's something called MPS, right? He said. I completely forgot I was talking to my future father-in-law. The conversation flowed so naturally into work talk that I switched to work mode. His father didn't push too hard on the marriage topic either. He was probably being considerate of my feelings. After just a few minutes of talking, I found myself respecting him. I started to understand why John called living together small stuff. He probably knew I wouldn't oppose living with his dad. About 30 minutes into our conversation, his father said, my back's starting to hurt. Sorry to cut this short, Mary, but I need to rest. Please take care of John. He's quite a chatterbox. Sure, I replied. I will, I replied, but I wondered if sure was the right response. His father seemed to cut the conversation short to avoid burdening me. I wanted to talk more but didn't want to tire him out. Feeling a bit disappointed, I left with John. On the way back, John told me more about his dad. Dad's a serial entrepreneur, John said. A serial what? I asked. A serial entrepreneur. He starts companies, grows them, then sells them. He's done it multiple times, John explained. You can just buy and sell companies like that? I was surprised. Well,
Yeah,
selling one company involves millions of dollars. Starting and growing a company also needs a lot of money, so the sale isn't all profit. But still, Dad's pretty well off. He just doesn't like to spend. He could build a mansion that would make jaws drop, but he doesn't, John said. Don't you know much about his work? I asked. He doesn't talk much about work or money. He never hired me for his companies or taught me how to make money. Living at home is the only way he spoils me. If he's got so much money, he could spoil me a little more, don't you think? John replied. Your dad probably has his reasons, I said. It seemed his father was quite an impressive person. It made sense that John might feel overshadowed by him. Given how incredible his father is, John probably got compared to him a lot, so it's understandable that he'd have some complaints. By the way, why did your mom leave? Your dad seems so kind. It's hard to imagine their marriage not working out, I asked. Mom spent a lot and wanted an easy life. After the divorce, people only came after Dad's money, so he decided never to marry again. He focused on work instead. With that much money, he could have spent a bit, don't you think? John answered. I don't believe in spending money just because you have it, I said. From what John told me, it seemed his mom relied on his father's money, so I couldn't agree with John on this point. But I think his words came from feeling inadequate compared to his father. Later, I talked with John about living with his father. His father currently relied on John for help and also got assistance from a home helper when John was at work. I thought my husband and I would continue working while getting help from a home assistant to take care of my father-in-law. However, John surprised me with a different idea. I want to quit my job and take care of Dad, John said. What? Quit your job? I was shocked. Dad's such an incredible person, right? I feel like I haven't done anything for him all this time. So, from now on, I want to support him without relying on a caregiver. I'll be like a homemaker, John explained. I'll take care of the house too, John added. Are you sure you won't regret quitting your job? I asked. I'd regret not doing anything for Dad more. I can go back to work after he's gone, he replied with a small smile. That joke isn't funny, I said, feeling worried. I thought my husband might resent his father, but it turned out that wasn't the case. Despite everything, he really cared for his dad. If you're going to be a homemaker, you better handle the housework properly, I warned. Leave it to me, John said, puffing out his chest confidently. Since my father-in-law would cover his own expenses and my income would be enough for the two of us, I decided to leave the housework to my husband. When we got married and started living together, everything went as planned. I worked, and John took care of the house. He managed the chores, handled the finances, and supported his dad. When I tried to help, he would say, "You're tired from work. I'll handle the house stuff. You rest." My father-in-law remained kind and shared many valuable stories with me. Our second marriage was going well. However, I noticed that my father-in-law would sometimes frown when he saw John doing housework. A month after we started living together, John began slacking off with the house chores. You're sleeping on the couch again? You've been there all day, haven't you? I asked. No way. I went to the fridge when I was thirsty and to the bathroom too, John said, trying to defend himself. That's not what I mean. What about dinner? Did you go grocery shopping? I asked. Dinner's ready, don't worry, he replied. I glanced at the kitchen, but there was no sign of any cooking. All I saw was an empty container on the dining table. It was clear he had been lazy all day. From this, I realized what John meant by dinner's ready. Perfect timing, the intercom rang, and John grabbed his wallet and headed to the door. I was too stunned to say anything. John had only handled the housework diligently for the first 3 weeks. After that, he gradually stopped doing anything, and I ended up cooking, cleaning, and doing the laundry. It's typical for someone with a careless personality to start strong and then quickly slack off. Caught up in the excitement of getting married, I hadn't foreseen this. My father-in-law, on the other hand, must have predicted it early on, which is why he frowned when he saw John doing housework. As my husband began to shirk his duties, my father-in-law started apologizing to me, saying, "That boy is so careless. I'm really sorry, Mary. I hoped he'd become more responsible after getting married, but it seems he's just causing you trouble. If he becomes a burden, feel free to kick him out." I wouldn't do that. Really, it's okay. I'm sorry I've tried to correct him, but he's just, well, you know. It's okay, but he isn't neglecting to help you, right? I asked. No, he does help me at least a little, I replied, noticing a slight change in my father-in-law's expression. It was clear that John wasn't completely ignoring his father, but he also wasn't doing a thorough job. Still, my father-in-law was probably downplaying the situation to avoid any conflicts between us. I'm sorry, I said. No, Mary, you don't need to apologize, my father-in-law replied. With just one word, sorry, he seemed to understand what I was feeling. We both apologized, and there was a bit of awkwardness between us. To break the tension, my father-in-law quickly changed the subject with a brighter tone. Oh, I'm doing some end-of-life planning and need your help. I'm not confident in John handling it. End-of-life planning? It's not as negative as it sounds. I just want to avoid any trouble later. Got it. If there's anything I can do, I'd be happy to help. Talking about John made us both cautious, so we ended up avoiding discussions about him and housework. It was an uncomfortable way of being considerate, but there were also thoughtful gestures that made me happy. Is there anything inconvenient at home? My father-in-law asked. Not really, but the bathroom could use some fixing. I had just wanted the water heater checked, I said. But my casual comment turned into something much bigger. Wait, what's this? I exclaimed when I saw the changes. My father-in-law had contacted a contractor he knew, and they completely renovated the bathroom. Not only were the tub and shower replaced, but the walls and floors were redone with special coatings to resist grime, and the drain was redesigned to make cleaning easier. They even installed a bath lift to help my father-in-law get in and out easily. Now I can enjoy a nice, clean bath, and it's easier for me to get in and out, he said. It was an extravagant use of money, and this happened a few times where a small request turned into a huge upgrade. I learned not to ask my father-in-law for small favors lightly. Yet my husband still called him stingy. I couldn't understand how John could see it that way, given how generously his father spent money. Out of curiosity, I asked my father-in-law about his most extravagant spending. What's the most luxurious thing you've ever done? I asked. I started a seafood company in Germany. Built the office and the factory from scratch. That cost a fortune. A company in Germany? That's impressive, but it was work, right? Well, yes and no. I did it because I wanted to, so it was more like a hobby. Why seafood in Germany? Was it because it was profitable? No, I had no knowledge or connections and didn't think about profits. Germany exports a lot of seafood, and we import a lot of it. I love seafood, so I thought I could make money and eat all the food I wanted, he said, looking happier than I'd ever seen him. He must have really enjoyed that time. But if he just wanted seafood, he could have bought as much as he wanted. Starting a company overseas seemed extravagant. Do all successful people think this way? It's a world far beyond the understanding of an ordinary person like me. It made me realize that my father-in-law wasn't stingy, he was just careful about when and where to spend money. My husband just didn't understand that. One day, my husband burst into David's room and vented his frustration at both of us. You listened to Mary's requests, but not mine. Are you talking about the bathroom? You use it too, right? And since cleaning is easier now, it's a big help to you as a homemaker, right? Mary gets to enjoy a nice bathroom, and it's convenient for me too. No one loses here, David replied calmly. My husband clicked his tongue loudly and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I'm really sorry, I said. It's fine, but why don't you listen to your son's requests? I asked. He's like his mother. When he has money, he spends it without thinking. Even with a lot of money, you need to understand its value and how to use it wisely. I've tried teaching him that many times, but he's still the same, David said, his expression turning somber. Since that day, my husband had become even more neglectful. Not only did he stop doing anything around the house, but he started causing unnecessary trouble. Whose motorcycle is that outside? Did you buy it? No one else's motorcycle would be here, I yelled at my husband as soon as I got home from work. But he just polished an expensive-looking golf club in the living room without even looking at me. My husband had stopped doing housework and started buying whatever he wanted. I wouldn't complain if he was spending his own money, but he was using my bank account without permission. You get your requests granted by Dad. Let me have a bit of luxury too, he said, trying to justify his actions. He had been diligent as a homemaker at first, and I hadn't seen this lazy side of him before we got married. It seemed he had been hiding his true self before marriage. I was completely fooled. When we got married, I told my husband, if my salary isn't enough for our living expenses, feel free to use the money in my account. I took back my bank book so he couldn't use the money without my permission. When I checked it, I saw he had spent around $50,000 in just 3 weeks. It was an expensive lesson that I couldn't trust him. Naturally, I thought about divorcing him, but I didn't want to leave my father-in-law in his care, so I erased divorce from my list of options. My husband seemed to sense that I wouldn't divorce him and became even more arrogant. Hey, can't you come home earlier? I've been waiting for dinner all this time, he complained, treating the living room sofa like his personal nest and hardly moving from there. Of course, he did no housework at all. What does being a homemaker mean? I was starting to lose my understanding of it. He had said he didn't want to rely on a home assistant and wanted to be a good son, but he ended up hiring a caregiver again. Honestly, this made me feel better knowing my father-in-law wasn't left to my lazy husband. I decided to avoid my husband as much as possible, thinking, let sleeping dogs lie. With this mindset, the year flew by quickly. Then a significant event happened for both me and my husband. Thank you for everything, my father-in-law passed away just before turning 81. The time I spent with him was short but incredibly meaningful to me. It felt like we had spent 11 years together. Even after the funeral, I couldn't pull myself together and felt a deep void in my heart. As I sat in the living room, lost in emptiness, my husband walked in with a cheerful expression. Hey, let's get divorced. What? That single word snapped me out of my daze. He was waving the divorce papers in my face. It wasn't a misunderstanding or a joke. I found Dad's bank account. Guess how much is in it? Nearly $600 million. So this money is all mine. You're no longer needed, ATM. When Dad collapsed a year ago, I didn't want to deal with taking care of him, so I looked for a wife. I figured you'd be an easy catch since you were grieving the loss of your previous husband. I see, so that's why you were in such a hurry to get married. That's part of it. But then I changed my strategy. You inherited money from your late husband, right? You never talked about it, but I figured his retirement and insurance would be substantial. I took care of Dad while you acted as the ATM until he passed away. It was easier than working. Now that Dad's gone, I'm set for a lavish life with his inheritance. Do you think you can get away with this? I asked, feeling the anger rising. Of course. I'm his son, so it's only natural I inherit his wealth. He worked until he collapsed, and I thought he'd live until 87, but he died sooner than expected, so I'm lucky, he replied smugly. I realized I was clenching my fists. It was my fault for being tricked into marrying him, and I could accept that, but I couldn't forgive him for speaking so badly about my kind father-in-law. I was ready to punch him, not caring about the trouble it might cause later, but then I felt like I heard my father-in-law's voice saying, stay calm. Right, there was no need to do anything rash. Are you sure about this? All right, give me the divorce papers, I said. I snatched the papers from my husband, signed them on the spot, and handed them back. Thanks for making this easy. I'll file these tomorrow. You can take all our savings. I've got $600 million, so take as much of that petty cash as you want, he said, clearly gloating. Okay, then.
Yeah.
Leave it to me. I'll file the papers and send you your stuff if you want, I replied, walking past him and out of the house. As I left, my anger started to fade, and I felt a wave of laughter rising. My husband would soon regret divorcing me. That $600 million was just a pipe dream. A few days later, while staying at a hotel and looking for a new place to live, my ex-husband called. Hey, what the hell did you do? He yelled. I instinctively pulled the phone away from my ear as he started shouting. He seemed confused, so I needed to explain what was happening. I can guess what happened, but why don't you tell me? I asked calmly. When I tried to withdraw money from Dad's account, they said this money can't be withdrawn. What's going on? There should be $600 million in there, he said, his voice full of frustration. Looks like you didn't know. Since your dad didn't spoil you, you never took an interest in his affairs, right? And he never discussed his work with you, I explained. Stop with the riddles. There's money, right? He demanded. Yes, there's $600 million, but it's collateral, so you can't touch it, I replied. Collateral, he asked, his voice shaking. That's right. The money is in the account, but it's untouchable, like a pie in the sky. Also, that money is about to be used to pay off debts, so it'll be gone soon, I explained. You're kidding. There's $600 million, and I can't use any of it? His voice grew quieter as he started to panic. I knew about the $600 million being used as collateral because I helped with my father-in-law's end-of-life planning. He had asked me to handle things if anything happened to him. Since he passed away, I was going to use the $600 million to settle his debts. But since my ex suddenly demanded a divorce, I left the paperwork to him, telling him to take care of the rest. What did Dad do with the $600 million? My ex asked. He used it for something he loved, I replied. What does that mean? He asked, confused. At over 72, Dad decided his next job would be his last and used his savings for something he enjoyed, that seafood processing and distribution company in Germany he always talked about. He trusted the management to locals and planned to enjoy his retirement here, but it was a huge failure, and he lost almost everything. When he told me about it, he laughed, saying it was only natural since he did it without any real knowledge. He had no regrets about where he spent his money. To start that company, he borrowed $600 million using his savings as collateral, but it turned into debt, so he planned to repay it with another job. It seemed impossible, but he didn't think so. Even with the debt, he kept enough money for his retirement. In today's world, where many struggle in retirement, it's impressive. However, while sorting out the Germany company, his health declined. When that happened, he renegotiated his repayment plan with the bank. Given his long history of high-value transactions, they trusted him. He told them, if I can't work anymore, take the collateral. They agreed to a 2-year grace period, after which the debt would be paid off with the collateral if he couldn't work. That year is up, and it's time to settle the debt. So this $600 million is debt repayment money and will soon be zero? My ex asked, his voice filled with shock. Exactly. Didn't you find another bank account? There should be one for living expenses.
Yeah.
I found one with $80,000 in it. That's money you can use freely. It's your inheritance. $600 million turned into $80,000. Why didn't he prepare more for his retirement? My ex wondered, clearly surprised. I was surprised by the $80,000 too, but knowing him, he probably planned to add more if needed. He seemed capable of anything. And it looks like you haven't checked the will yet. Will? Dad told me he'd leave me about 20%, my ex said. We're divorcing, so you could contest it as infringing on your rightful inheritance, but I'd like to honor his wishes. I hope you'll agree to the 20%, I said, noticing he was breathing heavily. He thought he'd get $600 million, but the amount kept shrinking, and now he was panicking. Why did he waste so much money? He could have bought anything with $600 million, my ex yelled, frustrated. Yelling at me won't change anything. He was happiest when he talked about that time, so he had no regrets. It was his money, and he used it. He planned to repay the debt himself, so no one can complain. You just jumped to conclusions and got ahead of yourself, I replied. Why are you so panicked? I asked. The truth is, I thought I'd get $600 million, so I spent all my own money. My account is empty, he admitted. What? Seriously? I was shocked. My ex-husband had been spending money he didn't even have yet. Now that we were divorced, he couldn't rely on my savings anymore, and he was currently unemployed. I finally understood why he was so panicked. Still, you have a roof over your head and a house, so you can rebuild your life, right? I suggested. I am almost 54, unemployed, and have only a little savings. What's going to happen to me? Please help me, he pleaded. Me? You have savings and a job, don't you? Why should I help an ex-husband? You're suffering the consequences of your own actions, I said firmly. Please, let's pretend the divorce never happened, he begged, but I ignored his pleas and hung up the phone. Having a careless personality is definitely not a good thing. With that thought, I went back to looking at property listings. Surprisingly, my ex-husband did follow through with the will and gave me $40,000 for my father-in-law's inheritance. That made up for the money he had taken from me. He probably thought it was too much trouble to fuss over $40,000 after dealing with the $600 million situation. He also apparently started working in sales again, but he didn't seem to be taking it seriously. The shock of not getting the $600 million affected his motivation, leading to frequent mistakes. After a month of struggling under the scolding of younger supervisors, he saw his paycheck and lost motivation, comparing it to the $600 million he missed out on. He quit after just a month and is now a part-time worker, barely making enough to get by. But with that, his savings of $600,000 won't increase. In fact, it'll probably decrease. I wonder if he's thinking about his retirement. Well, whatever trouble he gets into now is not my concern. There's no ATM for him anymore, he'll have to work hard. I rented a small condo and started living on my own. I put the $40,000 from my father-in-law into my bank account. I consider it a kind of talisman, so I don't plan on spending it. Seeing it in the account feels like I'm carrying a bit of my father-in-law's work spirit with me, which motivates me. Today, I'll draw strength from him and do my best at work.